Greetings, heathens, heretics, and sweaty human beings. Well, human-ish. Welcome
Close
to
enough.
well, humanoid, humanish. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's
Um,
some shared DNA somewhere along the line.
I don't want to know about your DNA. Welcome to part two. Um, well, whose turn is it this week? Because yeah, being here last week. What are we doing this week? It's part two or what? It could be anything.
I don't know why I'm here. Someone tell me.
Oh, fuck, I like you. Right.
How,
So, we,
I'm sorry, I don't have the energy at the moment.
how
It's too hot. It's too ridiculous. I'm
Yeah,
just
so we
done.
again, it's the same as last week's episode. We're all sweating our bollocks off while the Saudi prince lounges in his air-conditioned apartment
Shut the fuck up. I've got bigger problems than your like fucking what how hot is it there?
at 30 degrees.
Yeah, yeah, but you don't have fucking Iranian missiles though, do you? Cunts.
Well, this is true.
That's not
Can
good.
you actually see them from your house? No, you can.
Probably
It's like
can.
it's like so far so good out here. Set the world afire.
Oh my God. Yeah, you should probably get out.
I wasn't worried. I wasn't worried until I saw a message on the app that we have about air raid sirens in Bahrain, and I was like, oh, for God's sake. They
Yeah.
hit the bridge, I can't get bacon.
Can you get out of the country yet? Are they like? Is there easy passage
Yeah, they've opened
out?
they've opened the airspace again. Um, but like my I know someone. I don't know if he's going to watch this episode, but I think I'll give a shout out to Bill. He's in Baghdad at the minute. He's right in the middle of it. He's
Oh,
not happy. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Although I kind of use the same rule of thumb as I did when I used to live in Korea, which is don't panic until the locals panic. So,
that's fair.
um,
That's fair. Anyway,
I don't. I was about to say the best we can do with that information
sorry.
is segue into war pigs, which might give you a bit of a clue as to uh, as to why we've gathered here in our
yeah,
masses.
so we are rapidly approaching the beginning of the end, as it's called.
Yeah. Can I
Um,
just say, did anyone see the photo of so all of the Black Sabbath socials put out a photo this week of Geezer Butler, Bill Ward, and Ozzy Osbourne sitting on a sofa at band practice.
yeah, I saw that.
It's fucking amazing. I mean, I didn't expect well, I don't know what I expected really, but it gave me a bit of a chill. I got the old goosebumps seeing Bill Ward there in the middle of the sofa, who looks, he looks lean. He looks old, but he's from what I could see, and it's not a professionally taken photo. It's like a little bit of a, a phone snapshot. And he said telephone then, Go- going back to the, I don't know, 1800s or whatever. When was the telephone? I don't know. Like moving on. Um, yeah, the three of them. Obviously, Iommi wasn't in the picture. Whether he's turned up yet or not, we don't know. But it was really good to see the three of them reunited, ready to go, I guess, or as
Um,
ready as they can be.
they were also Iommi and Giza were sat on the bench as well. There's a photo of the two of them on the Sabbath bench, so it's
Oh, nice.
it's all very cool. I'm not so sure about the whole merch store in Selfridges and that. That seems a bit off, but other
A
than that,
bit middle class, isn't it?
Well,
yeah, it is. It's not really, if you're talking back to the beginning, that should be on a fucking market stall in Aston or something, not in fucking Selfridges.
a
So
butcher's shop somewhere.
yeah, exactly, something like that. But anyway,
Yeah.
so last week we celebrated the non-Aussie albums. So this week is only right in the run up to that event is that we celebrate the Aussie albums. Now, I think we're all in agreement that this is nigh on impossible to split. The same caveat we always do with these episodes is there's no shit albums. This really is like choosing between your favorite nine children.
It's a tough one. I remember how troubled Professor Mike Pierce was with the corrosion episode, and I kind of feel his pain for this one. These uh, these albums are pretty special.
Yeah, yeah, they are. And even the ones that some may consider weak, you put them up against most competition and they're still going to blow everything out of the water. So um look, we'll start at the bottom as we always do. And probably to be expected is 13. which was the sort of, the 2013 kind of reunion album and all that. I haven't really got a lot to say about this. This is, for me, a bit of a pointless album. I think, yes, there's some moments on it, but I haven't got a lot to say. So I'll open the floor out to you three distinguished gentlemen.
I scored it at the bottom, so I think we all did, didn't we?
We all did, yeah.
And I do think it's a flawed album. But you're right. To start with the positive, I think "End of the Beginning" and "God Is Dead" are both great songs. I remember hearing them. I think it was "God Is Dead" was the lead single when that album came out, and I was like, do you know what? That's a strong opening single. I think the problem is, as it plays on, you start to see that they've kind of referenced themselves. Loner comes in and it's basically NIB by another name, and is it Zeitgeist, is Planet Caravan kind of rewritten. Um, I think the problem with
Yeah.
this album is Rick Rubin's involvement kind of confused them. He came on board, and bearing in mind, Black Sabbath at this point are a band that has evolved, over decades. And Rubin's instruction was like, imagine you're making the follow up to your debut, and then write that album. And I think what that's done inadvertently is kind of made them try to rewrite or redo what they were doing back then, which I don't think was the right approach. Um, so it comes out as them kind of writing to a formula or second guessing themselves or
Missing the tangible effects of various narcotics.
well, yeah, and missing the powerful effects of Bill Ward as well, who was obviously he was in the running to record this album. Then contracts and all that business came into play, and he didn't do it. And I remember being really excited that Brad Wilk from Rage was, he was put in place to play drums. And ultimately, I think that was just the wrong choice. I think there's great drummer. A bit like last week when we were talking about Ian Gillan and Born Again. It's like great in his own right, but put them together and it's a weird fit for Sabbath ultimately. And it kind of just, I think there was this sort of stilted
Yeah, but
something that
the
just didn't
problem
flow.
is that the problem is when you bring in another band member to like fill a spot, and I think other bands that have these revolving doors of musicians can suffer from this too. You can't imagine, even if it's Brad Wilk, he's a big name, and he's got like the pedigree of being in a big band. He's done the big venues and everything like that. Is he really going to just go? Oh, stop! Yeah, Tony, that riff's not very good, mate. You're not, are you?
Yeah.
It,
On
Who's
that
told?
point, he does, to my ears, he plays like a rabbit in headlights. There's just something, there's a confidence that's missing. There's a version of this album that exists in my head. If you was to say who was the best drummer to replace Bill Ward, Stanton Moore, right? If you got Stanton Moore, who, if you we talked about him in the Corrosion episode. If you don't know him, great drummer with all of the swing that you need to propel Sabbath in the way that Bill Ward
Jazz
did.
touch.
Like if he got involved, I just think it would have catapulted. That would have been the album that we really wanted.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a
Aside
tricky
from
one really because they got together and they wanted to make an old school Black Sabbath album, which is fair enough. But in some ways, it was a bit too old school, wasn't it? It's if you're going to get together as they did, you kind of want some newish ideas or noticeable ideas. Let's have something fresh. You're getting together um, for the first time in many years.
Mm,
You've been playing with each other for quite some time live, so there should be a bit of chemistry, but it does feel like they phoned it in.
yeah,
Yep.
I blame Rick Rubin for that because like we know because we talked about it last week, and we know that Iommi's got several kind of projects and solo albums under his belt. The man's not short of ideas, like he's not short of riffs, but I think Rubin kind of went in there and hemmed them in a bit. Even to the point where he was saying to them, he wanted Iommi to use the same amps that he was using like back in 1968, and Iommi's like, but they're shit. Like it's like there's a reason I don't use them anymore. Um, so I think a lot of that push and pull has baked itself into the album, and I don't not like it. I can put it on, but for me, it's more of a one track at a time job.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's out of the way now. We've done that, so we can go all the way back to those first 8 albums and go to. So next up, we got Never Say Die. Again, we've all pretty much got it down there in that same kind of position. I mean, look, for me, it's it's not bad. I just it just doesn't sound like a cohesive Sabbath album like the first six did. Like this, like Johnny Blade that we were talking about just before. That's sort of makes me think more of fucking Hawkwind than it does Black Sabbath. It's a mad song, absolutely fucking mad. But it's still I go back and I listen to it. I don't listen to it very often, but when I do, I enjoy it more than I remembered the last time. I think, oh, I should listen to this more often, and then I don't listen to it, and I do that same cycle again. So look, the title track's a banger as well, and I'm sure you're going to talk about Swinging the Chain as well for what it's worth. But yeah, it's a great album, but obviously it's down there on the list compared
It
to.
just you can see the direction they're going in, or they're kind of peering towards on Sabotage. But it just there's those that album. It's too far removed from why I liked Sabbath to begin with.
Yeah.
Um, so it's not like you said, it's not a bad album, and if you put it up against a lot of other bands, it's still better than their output. But it's you listen to it every now and again, and or one song at a time, or it's like you just like one of those albums where you have it because it's Sabbath and it's the collection, but you don't really put it on all the time. Not as much as you would like listen to the debut or something like that.
Exactly. It's just it almost gets forgotten about a little bit, and it just when you listen to it, it just feels like yeah, you can tell that this was Sabbath kind of starting to. It wasn't quite working out anymore. The chemistry wasn't really there anymore, so it just didn't quite hit those same spots. Which
I don't like the cover either. I just don't like the cover.
I don't. I see this
The
and
cover,
Technical Ecstasy. Which is next. They're both weird covers, but I don't mind Never Say Die because it's just it doesn't make any fucking sense. Well, it does with the title, but it's still for those who haven't seen it, Bing Dog's got it in his hand.
oh, hang on, let's see. You'll know. I mean, it's become a bit of an iconic cover, really,
Yeah,
thanks to Iron Man and what's his name, old what's his chops? I need a voice of reason to step in here. You're the Marvel.
Well, Iron Man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sorry, I,
Like,
I realise I say the word Iron Man in a Black Sabbath
I have to say, hang on, come on, you don't
in a
don't,
Black
don't
Sabbath
force me
podcast, and
to.
I, and I mean it in a completely different context.
Like, you don't want me talking about Marvel. Come on, we know what happens.
we've got limited time here.
Right.
Yeah, come on,
Okay.
let's
All
let's
right.
go.
No. Fair.
And so
Fair
what is
enough.
that? Yeah, and I'm looking at yeah. I mean, what are they? Pilots? Futuristic? Who
They
knows?
they they are pilots. But look, right, okay, so what I want to say about this album is that a little bit like Forbidden, which we discussed last week, this is the album that we've been told we're not allowed to like. Like this is the one that, throughout getting into Sabbath, every article, every kind of history I don't know, retrospective or whatever writes about this as like the shit one. And I've never understood that. I listen to it. I think it's full of creativity. There's some great ideas. The third track in Junior's Eyes is, to my ears, one of Sabbath's best tunes. The chorus just soars like Ozzy does Ozzy. His voice goes to that place that just sends goosebumps up your arms. Um, I think Air Dance is an underrated track. Like it's For anyone that like we you kind of talk about Sabbath as like the band that invented it all, right? They've done it. Okay. Any like heavy metal genre they've done. And then you might say, yeah, what about like prog, like progressive metal? Like, that took it and that took it something else, took it all somewhere else. No, Sabbath did it already on this album, Air Dance. It's like yeah, they were. I mean, we're going to talk about it a lot in this episode, but there are so many examples of that where Sabbath got there first. I was listening to Breakout earlier, saxophones in there. It's like Sabbath got there first. They've already done it.
I want to know who are these people that are telling you that you can't like it, and why are you fucking listening to them?
Well, I don't. I listen to Never Say Die instead. I mean, that's the truth
Like,
of it.
like just do what I do, and just if you just go through life and you just have contempt for anything anyone says or thinks or does, their beliefs, their culture, it's a much quieter life.
I mean,
Not everybody wants to be like you, though.
Then your opinions won't, you won't be affected by other people's opinions.
it's working for you, so
Yeah, exactly.
there's something in it.
It's
Um,
it's the shock factor, I think, really. I think people who come to back in the day, or even people coming to Black Sabbath afresh, you get to these two albums and it's like, what?
Yeah,
But it is a shame. I mean, it took me a while because ultimately, well, I've got those earlier albums. I'll stick with those, and these were a bit weird. Um, but you listen to them and you think, oh, these are good songs. These are actually good songs. And okay, maybe they're not Sabbath. Maybe you'd rather them be doing something a bit more natural, but they're trying something different. They're pushing in another direction. And, there's loads going on at this point in time in rock.
I
And
think
yeah, it works.
I think it works, and I think just on that point, it's worth acknowledging that Sabbath were a band that just kept chucking ideas in the mix. Like you can't knock them for that, whether it works or it doesn't work. They this entire tenure with Ozzy, they weren't just rehashing old ideas. That came later on with 13. This is about a stream of creativity, and by the time they get to this point, they're doing so much extra. There's so many new ideas that are just coming in. Most of it works.
There, the the thing I find, and it's all the albums, maybe not the debut, but there's at least one or two songs on each album where if you played it to someone, then let's say they knew of Black Sabbath, but they'd never heard their stuff much. And you said, "Oh, this is Black Sabbath." They'd probably be like, "No, no, because Black Sabbath is supposed to be a heavy metal band." No, this. If you played someone Planet Caravan, they'd be like,
Yeah.
"What? This is Sabbath?" Or if you played them like the last segment of Symptom of the Universe,
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
or actually quite a few tracks of Volume 4. But these two albums, definitely, if you were to put that on, this is Black Sabbath.
On this
They'd be like,
album, you got Hard Road is the obvious one.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Also notable for being the only song that Tony Iommi sings on as well. He's like his voice in the backing vocals.
I mean, we'll tie. We may as well tie in technical ecstasy with this because we got that at seventh. But they're pretty close, and like I say, they are the two albums that for some reason get derided. I mean, when it comes to technical ecstasy, I've got three words for this album, and that is "Oh, dirty women," which is just like they played that at the Last Supper Padre went to in '99, and which I was surprised at. I wasn't expecting them to play that, and it sounded fucking amazing, like absolutely fucking amazing. So that holds the album up a little bit for me. Obviously, you've got stuff like Backstreet Kids and that as well, but
Not Bash Street Kids, which I
not
still call
Backstreet
it to this
Kids. Yeah,
day.
but
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's the better
What
of
if
the two for me.
what if Black Sabbath had written a track called "Backstreet's Back"?
Oh bloody hell. That's a
All right.
yeah, we're
All right now,
yeah, where we're going with that, I don't know. Yeah, again, to me, these two albums sit very, very close
yeah,
together in kind of, sound. One of the highlights for me on this album is Bill Ward's track, It's All Right, which I think is a really lovely song. And the first time I ever heard it, I had no idea it was Black Sabbath, but like way back, sort of 91, 92, Axl Rose used to play it on his grand piano, in those big Use Your Illusion shows, and he would just kind of use it as a bit of a segue, and kind of cover it probably before he went into November Rain or something equally as pompous on his big piano. Not knocking the track, man, it's a great track, but yeah, so when I first heard this, I was like, oh shit, that's that song that Axl used to play. Um, and it's a really lovely moment. Just, I think Bill's got a great voice. It really suits the track. And to Padre's point, it's something that's just completely left of field. If you someone that had some ideas about what Black Sabbath are and what they sound like heard that song, it kind of sounds like it could be like a Carpenter's track or something like that, just to kind of extend the analogy of the singing drummer. But it's just got that lovely sort of analog 70s warmth to it.
Oh yeah, and we should get with the another peculiar album cover, but again, I really like it, and I don't know. I almost own this on vinyl purely for the cover because again, I don't listen to it very often, but it's just mad. It
Yeah,
just makes no fucking sense whatsoever. Even less so than Never Say Die. It's,
that's true.
it's just fucking. It's drugs. It's pure drugs.
So yeah,
But they're always going to be the two albums that would separate because the first six Sabbath albums, this is when we're into sort of masterpiece territory, really.
Yeah, they do say it, don't they? Like you can only trust yourself in the first six Black Sabbath albums.
Yeah, yeah,
But
exactly.
I'm here to say those last two, those additional two have treated me pretty well over the years.
Well, we may as well dip into the first six then. So at sixth, we have album number six. This is where it gets a little bit interesting. So Sabotage. Um, this could be my favorite Sabbath album. Like my top three. I've changed this ranking so many times, and I've always had this real soft spot for Sabotage. It's a mad album. It's absolutely batshit crazy.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it's Megalomania that does it because that's up there with some of my favorite Sabbath songs. Again, it's mad. It's fucking best part 10 minutes long. What the fuck is he on about? Stick me, suck me. It's just it's crazy. I absolutely adore Sabotage, but I'm the only one who holds it in that higher regard. So I'm interested to hear why. So, being you had it at seventh and you other two
Yeah.
had it at sixth, so I'm
yeah.
clearly in the wrong.
I'll listen. What's Voice got to say?
See, I'm going to preface this by saying something really controversial, actually. Is that everyone talks about the first six Black Sabbath albums, but I tend to talk about the first five. Um,
Ooh.
I think Sabotage is closer to the next two in general quality than the previous five, personally. Um, but still good album. Let's make that very clear. I'm not gonna, scare anyone. But I think this is where the change was noticeable from this point, I think.
Oh, there's
And
definitely a shift. Yeah, no doubt.
yeah, it is. Yeah. And I think this feels like when the Sabbath as we knew them had started to go away quite significantly. But look, it is a good album. There's a lot going on. It's completely nonsensical sometimes. I get it. It takes a lot of work. I think for me, that's what it was. It took a lot of work to actually get my head around it. But ultimately, it will still be sort of further down, so we say, in terms of like appeal.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I can echo some of that in that I think it's quite a difficult album. I think it's very dark. I think it's very like it is heavy. Um, I now, okay. First of all, have to acknowledge Symptom of the Universe, right?
One
Because
of
Yeah,
Iommi's
yeah.
filthiest
right,
riffs.
because look, on the positive, that is a slam dunk. Like it's one of Sabbath's undeniably finest moments, that track. You know, it's really heavy, takes you off, just as Padre said earlier, takes you off into that kind of wild, like freak out, that kind of psychedelic freak out in the end. Um, you know, great Hole in the Sky as well, another one that's just heavy.
Yeah, yeah, super bizarre. Great track. Great, I love the name. Yeah, Symptom of the Universe is like when you know a riff is good when you watch like tour videos or backstage videos of other bands. Most notably, Year and a Half in the Life of by Metallica, and there's the scene where Kirk Hammett's in the hotel and
Mm.
he's just jamming and he's playing that riff.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
mean,
Just filth.
it just cuts
and
right
it and it's and it's again it's
bone.
one of those tracks by Sabbath where they were getting close to thrash.
Well, yeah,
It's
do you know what?
proto thrash.
It
It's
probably is the
proto thrash.
closest Sabbath ever
I
came to
mean,
touch.
Sepultura covered it, so
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So
you know, undeniable. For me, the kind of that's offset by it being a bit. Um, I mean, in a similar way to we talked about the album they put out under the name Heaven and Hell, Devil You Know, and I think that suffers a bit under the weight of its own kind of heaviness, and I feel a little bit like that with Sabotage. For me, it's another album I can do in smaller doses. It's a little bit like, you know, when you have really good chocolate and you have a little square and then it goes back in the fridge. And if you ate the whole thing, you'd just be sat there being like, oh, I want
I'm
that.
glad to say I've got one of I've got the Tony's, which is the sort of raspberry one, but of course it's not black chocolate, normal chocolate, is it? It's white chocolate, which I wasn't expecting.
Oh, right. Oh, bloody hell.
I was like,
Okay.
yeah, that's a couple of bites and put it back in the cupboard or fridge because yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, yeah,
why are we fucking talking about
Well,
chocolate?
yeah, let's move
Yeah,
on. I
can
mean,
we?
another analogy I have, you know, I use this
No
often
one
with
fucking
music,
cares.
is
oh,
like
you can shush. You bring your weird analogies up, so
for
That's true.
me, it's
yeah.
this is Sabbath across these 8 albums. I think this is Sabbath ever so slightly out of shape. It's like a boxer that's lost his form. Now, the positive of that is it still packs a fucking big punch, and it's worth it just for that because it will hit you in the face.
Mm.
But also, I think it's a bit sluggish and a bit like the when they go psychedelic and there's kind of weird stuff going on, it sounds more like a hangover than it does you know, taking you off somewhere kind of sort of transcendental or something like that, or some weird place. It sounds a bit like a headache. It's a bit awkward and it's a bit difficult. Hence, I can only take it in small doses, but I do have a lot of love for it.
I'd listen to it to death. It's probably the Sabbath album I listen to the most. It's often on in the car. It was on in the car on the way home. And I picked my boy up from school and he's like, oh, I haven't listened to this Sabbath album yet. And he was like, man, that's really good. So I was like, yeah. So you need to get involved. I understand why it's a bit of a jarring album at times because it is bizarre. It's probably their weirdest, to be
Yeah.
honest.
And
But
that's just Bill Ward's pants. I mean, we can't talk about Sabotage and not mention the cover art with that picture of Bill Ward in, I think he's wearing borrowed leggings and if you flip it over on the other side, you can
yeah,
see floppy underwear.
yeah, you can just
I
about
have
see
to
it.
say, it's a bit of a weird one. Whose idea was that? You're standing in front of a mirror, but it's not a mirror.
No, because it's behind. Yeah, yeah. That's called Drugs. I think is the is the
Yeah,
album there.
yeah.
In the
I
mid
mean,
seventies.
but
But
by Sabotage, the drugs have well and truly taken hold of that band.
yeah, very much so, very much so. But no, it's one of my favourites. So and it always will be.
Was it on this album or Volume 4 that dealers were phoning up the manager going, they keep asking for drugs, we haven't got any. They've bought them all.
That although all the drug stories come out of Volume 4, don't they? Because it was like a
Yeah.
coffee table, wasn't it? That just had an enormous pile of
Yeah,
coke on it. You know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it just how fucking Ozzy Osbourne is still alive, I don't know, but
But wait, well, it wasn't just Ozzy though; it was all of them.
oh, it
I
was
mean,
all of them, yeah. But
again,
the rest of them seem to have recovered.
It's,
yeah,
I think
but
my theory is the inner lining of their bodies were basically caked in industrial burn fumes and smoke. And so everything it's like it's like, well, Iron Man's extremis armor, basically. Everything's just inside is enhanced by this unique kind of material that drugs just can't get through.
It's a theory.
It's definitely a theory, and it's probably highly possible as well. So
Yeah.
it's yeah. Right. So next we have 1971's Master of Reality, the purple album, the album that gave us the purple logo.
Which,
Interesting.
to be fair, is it's the album that makes purple the most metal of all colors. Other than black, which in theory is not a color. You're always going to go purple next, aren't you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
For that reason.
there's this kind of like theological connotation with purple because it's like cardinals. So yeah, and it's quite fitting with Black Sabbath. But yeah, the purple's cool.
And it has become the archetypal Black Sabbath logo, and certainly for that era. I mean,
Yeah.
the album starts with a cough, which in itself is just fucking weird.
But
That's
again,
Iommi's cough.
Yeah,
it,
So
it
yeah,
shows,
so actually, yeah, just to correct my comment about Hard Road being the only song with Iommi's vocal, I suppose technically this also counts.
there you go. That was actually a genuine cough as well because I swallowed it. What do we think of Masters of Reality? Because
I
you know,
think I'm going to make I don't think it's a bold statement at all, actually. I think it's perfectly accurate. I think this would be Sabbath's best album if it wasn't so fucking short.
yes, yeah, the interludes just it just kind of yeah, it's like
You've
almost like
got
an EP.
you've only really got five proper
Yeah,
songs on it, and the rest feels like, yeah, it's all right, but it just feels like, yeah, you say interludes, and it's overall
yeah,
it's 34 minutes. If it was those five songs were 34 minutes, then okay, but it's not. And I just feel like I feel shortchanged with this album because it's like there's so much on it that's great, and I want more.
I think this album, and we talk about it, Volume 4, suffers in a similar way. It's just that the highs are so fucking amazing. I mean, this Master Reality is just full of bangers. I mean, that's what the word that came to mind when the question was asked, what do we think of Masters Reality? It's just like bangers. I
yeah.
mean, this is where you've got Sweet Leaf. This is where you got Children of
yeah,
the Grave,
like
Lord
this
of this world.
this album shows you the it's the progression of their drug use. So Sweet Leaf obviously is about weed, and then Volume 4 they've got Snowblind. So like they're obviously changing their drugs as they go through this album.
Sabotage is just all of it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Sabotage is basically that's where the hallucinogenics kick in. Volume 4, that's just coke. This one's weed. The first two albums, it's just a shitload of booze. Um,
I mean, I think
and
actually to my point, Sabotage to me sounds a little bit like the Come Down. It's a bit. It sounds like
oh
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
The freak
Um,
out.
is Children of the Grave Iommi's most iconic riff? Do we
Oh
think?
fucking hell! How can you ask that
I mean,
question?
yeah, I'm putting it out there, but I think I think it
I
is.
don't know, man. Like Into the Void, and also I thought this Lord of this World, and I think I've gone through and I can't seem to find the clip, but I think there's a scene or there's just like an excerpt on some kind of monster, and Hetfield's playing it in the background, just warming up, or
I
it's
mean,
it's another video like that.
it wouldn't
Um,
surprise me.
I
yeah,
think,
but I was sorry, voice. I
yeah,
I just want to say that when I listened to Lord of this World, I thought to myself straight off the bat, that sounds like it could have been on Saint Anger, and you you look at them, and again, this is the influence of Sabbath. They were doing stuff like that before any of these bands
Yeah,
came to the point. And
Um,
if you didn't have the fucking snare drum on St. Anger and you had a song like that, you'd be like, man, this is a great album. Well, that's a great song. So
well,
it's
just on that note, you take Inamorata from 72 Seasons. That's where that kind of thing come together for Metallica.
yeah,
That's pure Sabbath worship. That song, especially the sort of the bluesy psychedelic bit in the middle.
yeah.
you know. So yeah, you're right. Yeah, I
The
get
other
it.
the other
I
shout out
mean,
I want to give to Into the Void is it starts with one of Iommi's like most iconic riffs, and if you didn't think it could get any better than that, it ends on an equally iconic riff. It's like it just goes for this journey. You're like, yeah, but you can't top that fucking intro. Oh shit, okay. It's like halfway through the track, he goes, "Hold my pint," and he just gives you another fucking stone cold classic.
I think on the point of the Children of the Grave, I think what the reason it stands out is because whilst you got all of these other riffs going on and all the headbangings, Children of the Grave is where the field bounces.
Yeah, yeah.
That's it. That's kind of you don't get that with any of the other tracks, but Children of the Grave, people jump, people go for it.
The pace just goes up, doesn't
It,
it?
it is, and it feels. I mean, again, thing is, you can always sort of judge a lot of these albums and the tracks by the sort of nature of the of who covered the songs for Nativity in Black, or even sort of afterwards. So, I mean, White Zombie did Children of the Grave, didn't they?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
it works perfectly for them. So you can see all these different influences of different kinds of metal
Earth
with what
Crisis
they
covered it as well.
who?
Earth Crisis,
Oh, I haven't heard that.
Okay, right.
and it's a savage cover. So
Yeah.
it
Into
works.
the Void is just fucking doom metal. It's just
It's proper doom.
Well, that yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
I mean, I've got a funny story about Mass Children of the Grave. This is back, what's it, 2003. This is like when I was like balls deep in being a fucking major stoner. And I was on a bit of a sesh and I was in the house on my own and I was listening to Children of the Grave. You know, they've got the voices at the end.
oh right, the whispers and the kind of
Yeah.
I That freaked me out.
freaks
I
me
don't
out.
know.
Any like just
No,
doing
no,
that just
no.
now I freak myself out.
It gets worse, right? And it made me really paranoid. And I was in my flat in Roath in Cardiff. It's got two floors, and and it wasn't like I was the first one to move into that flat,
Mm.
right? And I just got really paranoid, and I started thinking I was hearing things. I thought someone was breaking in downstairs, and like, fucking those voices are going on. I phoned the fucking cops and had them come out.
Holy shit, man.
That's how paranoid that song made me.
No pun
And
intended.
then they get to the house and I'm like, probably shouldn't have left the bag of weed and the few pills I've got on the fucking coffee table. And I've been trying to stash them away.
See, that's the sort of trouble Black Sabbath gets people into.
Kids don't do drugs.
You know, what can I say? I'm going to make a controversial point here. I might prefer Solitude to Planet Caravan. You know, if we're talking those kind of, you know, those low key moments where they really take it down to something quite mellow, I actually think Solitude's a great track.
I love Solitude. It is a great song. Yeah.
Yeah, and Embryo and Orchid. That this is a great album, and I agree with Bean. That Solitude is better than Planet Caravan. I don't like Planet Caravan. I think it's trying to be too kind of psychedelic and like hippie-ish, and I don't like the fact that Pantera covered it either, because it was Pan. But again, that's another cover, Pantera. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a obviously you've got the Nativity in Black albums. I mean, I'd like to have the first one on vinyl, but unfortunately, I don't have it.
Don't bring these quarrels to this
I mean,
space.
I've tried to pick it up for a reasonable
Steve,
price, but you know,
look, I'm going to tell the story because it's relevant because it's a Sabbath story. But I got a text message from Tregenza. He's like, look what's for sale on eBay. So there's Nativity in Black, which I think we've all been looking for on vinyl. You know, it's one of those. You know, it's like on the vinyl bingo card, isn't it? You got to have a copy of that. Great album. Is it the best Sabbath covers album? Because there's a lot. I think was it
that's a different conversation.
Earache put out a like a death metal one, I think. Cannibal Corpse did Zero the Hero, which I think is
I would say it's the best covers album.
worth trigger. Anyway, so I got this text and I kind of didn't know how to take it. So I ended up bidding. I think I got the message was confused. I didn't think Tregenza was going to bid on it, so I thought I'm going for it. Anyway, long story short, I ended up outbidding Tregenza and winning this album, which I offered to return to you. But
Doesn't work like that. Because then I wouldn't be able to make you guilty every time we bring it up in
no,
conversation.
this is true. Do you know? Here's the thing, though. I still haven't played it because I look at it and I feel a pang of guilt every time I pull it out the stack, and I'm like, oh shit, that was the time I was a really bad friend. And
What's the most realistic? What's most ridiculous about it is that it was what, 33 quid, which is a crazy price for that.
yeah, because it's not an easy one to track down cheap.
No,
Relatively
it's in
cheap.
that sort of 80 to 100 quid mark,
Yeah.
and you just slipped in there.
I sniping it, mate. I sniping it off you.
That's just right.
All's
Kids
fair
don't
in
trust drummers.
all's fair in love and Sabbath.
You've done him dirty there, right? You did him wrong there, Bean. And you know, just two things. Firstly, you touch his wife before you steal his albums.
Is that permission?
And secondly, right, Tregenza, what have I been telling you since 2003? If it's money, just ask. I could have come in, got that album for you. Okay, I'm free of the burden of income tax. Okay, I don't have these worries like you do. Okay, come to me next time.
Anyway, moving swiftly on.
Yeah. Where are we up to? I don't know.
We are Champions League territory now, so we're in top four.
So we started in Champions League territory.
Well, to be fair, we did, yeah. So fourth we got Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. Someone's got it on vinyl. Well, Voice of Reason has just fucked off, but
Sorry.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, well, so I'm gonna show mine as well because I did get out.
I'll show you mine if you show me yours. Look, largely considered proper vintage Sabbath. But I'm a little bit hit and miss with it. I had it at number 6. Holy Man number 5, but Old Man Reason and the album Stealing Drummer have both got this at number 2. So let's hear it. Why is this almost the best one?
It's consistently great, and I know a lot of the others are, but it feels more consistently great than all the others, if I'm honest with you. The thing that stands out for this particular album.
Oh, there we go. Another cliffhanger.
It's not the heaviest. It's not the darkest. Huh? But yeah, it still feels like their most occult album. If that makes any sense. You've got the acoustic stuff, you got the witchy stuff. It all just feels a bit, unique and stand out. And when you look at that artwork, which is a lot more elaborate than some of the other artwork that they've done, I mean, if you get that back especially, even before we talk about the songs, just the overall package and the overall feel of it, it stands separate from all the others.
The artwork's worth bringing up as well because, the standard format for an album is you're going to have the artist name at the top because, flicking through records in a record shop is going to be at the top as the first thing you see. Whereas this one is all about Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. And it's just this tiny little Black Sabbath down here. It's Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. It's like it's a real sort of statement. We almost don't need our name anymore.
It's a statement of intent. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And while it is down there at number 6 for me, it is absolute vintage Sabbath. I mean, the title, obviously.
Obviously. Look, you've got the first riff of the title track, and everyone goes on about that. Yeah, that's not the best riff. It's the riff after the solo, because you can draw a line from that short 15-second riff directly to anything that came out in the 90s. That's new metal, grindcore, sludge, doom, fucking that one riff. And again, it's Iommi. Like Bean said, he got there 30 years before anyone else. It's like Corey from Slipknot says, it doesn't matter what anyone's done in metal, Sabbath did it first.
I completely subscribe to that. And I think anyone listening to this knows exactly the riff you mean, and they've it's just that dirty, filthy. It's a sexy riff. I think that's like, and I think that's this album. which I think speaks to the comment that Voice made about being like their most occult album. I mean, I would say there's a caveat to that because I have to put the debut, kind of make some space for the debut in that statement. Um, but this album, it's got that kind of, that kind of coven, witchy, sexy kind of element to it that just, I don't know, it's appealing, isn't it? For me, this album's everything across these 8 albums is included on this album. It does everything. It does all of it in one place, and it does it really successfully. It's all killer. It's no filler. It's heavy when it needs to be heavy. It's gentle when it needs to be gentle. It's got memorable melodies. It's got riffs. I mean, Sabracadabra is like that energizes me. That just
Yeah.
picks me, that lifts me up, that song.
I was going to talk about Sabracadabra because obviously Metallica covered it on Garage Inc. as well, and it was one of those Sabbath songs that I never really like used to think about. I would almost call this an unsung banger. If you're talking a Black Sabbath unsung banger song,
Absolutely.
it's not thought about in the same way, but it is a fucking great song.
Yeah.
Like just an incredible song. And Metallica's cover up made me realize, fuck me,
It
I
just goes for it.
yeah.
It just goes for it, and you got like songs like National Acrobat. I think there's just, I mean, Ozzy shines on this album. Their
Yeah.
choruses, his voices. Interestingly, I think Never Say Die and Technical Ecstasy are sit in a similar place in terms of the creativity, but they sound like they were produced in a hurry. This has got the production values, that it's got a sheen to it. It's got something that just kind of everything sits in the right pocket. Those albums, the ideas are there, but they kind of almost sound like they're the demo versions. And if they paid as much care and attention, I think, to the overall production as they did on Sabbath Bloody Sabbath,
Mm.
they'd be sitting up there as well. But yeah, for me, this is like everything came
Oh,
together for this album, and they did it all in one.
yeah, a couple of things. Didn't they like? I'm sure it's on here somewhere. They went into like some old castle to record it or something.
I'm sure they did. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
but
That
there
this
has
doesn't
is
sound like
there
something
has,
Black Sabbath would
there has
do.
to be
no,
castles involved along the
Wasn't
way
it the
somewhere.
same? Wasn't it the same place that Ozzy recorded Mr. Crowley?
Well, answers on a postcard or
Yeah, I
yeah.
hope
in the
so.
comments below. Let's,
I
let's have,
wanna I
let's have
wanna
the
point
facts.
out, and this is actually I've just noticed this, so this is really amateur hour for me, I have to say. But this is why I really need to pay more attention to this kind of stuff. But I have just noticed who did the artwork for this album. It's Drew Struzan.
Right.
Elaborate.
He no, he did a lot of film posters in the 70s and the 80s, like painted portrait style.
Okay.
So he did. I think he did Back to the Future and Indiana Jones.
Right.
Not the later ones, anyway. But if you think of so many of the classic film posters from our childhood that were photorealistic but painted, that
Wow.
was more than likely him.
Fuck me. All right, there you go.
So
Learn something new every
yeah,
day.
wow, basically.
Yeah, look, it's a masterpiece. Look, all these are fucking masterpieces in their own right, but it's like I said at the top of the episode, it's just very hard to choose between one, and that's why I sort of had it down at number six. Right, in third place then, volume four. And my first point on this really is, oh, we've lost someone. How the fuck, who has the right to open an album with Will's Confusion and the Straightener? Like, I mean, it's just sickening how good that track is. The change from one song to the other. I know it's technically one song, but that shift, that just gives me goosebumps every time I hear it, even now after all these
Right.
years.
Yeah.
It is just like, holy fucking shit, where did that come from?
I know.
It's
Yeah.
incredible.
I think, and on that point actually about the kind of one song shifting into the other. I mean, it's one track. It's Wheels of
Yeah.
Confusion, but going back to what Voice was saying about the albums being quite short, the Americans really didn't take to that. So they split the songs up and they gave them two titles.
Yeah.
So the Americans thought they were getting, oh right, okay, it's a 10-track album rather than an 8-track album. That's why is it War Pigs has got Luke's wall attached to it on some
Yeah.
versions. It's, you know, it's just something, a marketing thing they put in there just to appease um, the American market, which I think is interesting. But going back to Volume 4, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's next level. You know, it's by this point, they're not fucking about, are
No,
they?
no, no. And you got to bear in mind this is four albums essentially in a couple of years
Yeah.
as well. You know, and I mean we've talked about Metallica's first three or four albums, and we've talked about Maiden and all these other bands, but like when you start the whole fucking thing and you produce these four albums in a couple of years, it's just you almost don't need to bother anymore. It's like I've done it now.
Well, they
I'm
did. I
just going
mean,
to
you
touch
could
this.
say, arguably, you know, across those four albums, they set the template.
Yeah,
Everything that came after that, you know, all the albums we've talked about, largely to this point, you know, are kind of just variations on everything they've done. You know, they've kind of covered all bases. Like I said about Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, you know, if you stretch that out over four albums, you've kind of got, you know, what we've talked about so far. But you know, I love the production on this album.
yeah.
It's got, again, you know, I talked earlier about that kind of analog warmth, and you know, this has it. Um, I you know, the bands I listen to now to this day, like bands like Dark Throne that are putting out albums that remind me of Volume 4. Like I think that's the aesthetic they're going for. They're really trying to, you know, just bake in that 70s sound, and it all comes back to Volume 4.
Yeah, it's just a magnificent piece of work. I mean, Under the Sun, it just that song just kind of epitomizes what Doom is. Snowblind is incredible. Supernaut's incredible.
Hang on, we can't
Um,
rush past Supernaut. Like
no,
Supernaut, holy shit. I mean, again, another track that just gives me energy. You know, that's a wherever I am, whatever I'm doing, that song's going to pick me up and just put me back on track.
it's a magnificent piece of work.
Like, yeah.
I mean, it's not an immediate album. Certainly, again, it requires work, but it doesn't have the bangers in the same way as other albums do, like hits, so to speak. It's very much an album's album.
Yeah, I
Uh,
guess
um,
it's a hint of the direction to come, I suppose, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, but it's my number three, so it's certainly up there. But it's just an album that sort of just soaks into you really slowly, like
Mm.
some sort of cheap methadone. Uh, but yeah,
Okay.
there's again, it's consistent. There's not like one track that's like, oh, this is like the classic banger kind of thing, and then you've got the others which are they're good. It's just a constant sort of vibe throughout all of them.
Yeah, and it takes you on a journey as well, because you know you've got your Snowblinds and your Tomorrow's Dream, Supernaut. You know they're kind of like I call them singles. You know, um, but they sit really nicely in this kind of deeper material. You know, like Wheels of Confusion. You know, Cornucopia. I mean, Jesus Christ, man, that's a heavy track. Again, it's like we're talking about bands, a band that's done it all before anyone could catch up, right? It's like, all right, yeah, heavy. No, just put this on, Cornucopia. You know, okay, all right, forget it. They've
I
done
think,
it.
I think for me as well, Wheels of Confusion is a track where you can most clearly see the link to Soundgarden.
That's
Oh,
a good
hello.
shout.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good shout. Um, I feel like we ought to talk about FX.
Do we need to?
Interesting for two. I've got two little FX anecdotes there. Is a couple of years ago, it was gifted to me by my good lady, so I appreciate that. So shout out to her. But she got me the Volume 4 like remastered box set with all kinds of extras in there. It's a lovely, like all of these. Most or all of these albums have been re-released in a really nice package where you get all kinds of you know, special features and extras and stuff like that. Anyway, it's been remastered, and I'm listening to this thing, and it sounds incredible. And I remember making the comments like, even FX just sounds amazing. It's like I get it. All of a sudden, I get it. But and the other thing is, Zach Wild's done his Zach Sabbath project where he's he's re-recorded all these early Sabbath albums, and they're great. Some really good covers there. But even on his version of Volume 4, he's covered FX. So there are bands out there that have covered FX, which I think is nuts.
We'll quickly touch on changes as well, because on this, obviously it's a fucking great song. It's the only time really that Sabbath did a proper full on ballad, I suppose. And then you had that god awful version with Kelly Osbourne in the early 2000s that just ruined that fucking song for me.
Right.
It
Right.
really did. Every time I
Have,
hear that now, I just think of her, and
have
it
you heard
irritates the
the
fuck out of me.
have you heard the Charles Bradley version? So there's like
No.
there's a well no it's good. So there's a soul singer. He's dead now.
Oh
He
no,
died a
yes,
couple
I
of years ago.
have.
Right.
Yeah, I have. I think he even did it on Jules Holland or something like that. But yeah,
Yeah, I mean he
yeah,
was like one of those albums. So it's almost like, and I hope I'm not speaking out of line here, but he's kind of done a bit of a Johnny Cash in that the song belongs to him now. Like he's kind of done what is perhaps, would I go so far as say the definitive version, but it's a great version of this song. He's just really kind of undone the damage that was done by Kelly Osbourne. I'll say that much. Let's say that. But it's a beautiful, beautiful version. And it just goes to show the power of this song, like when it's taken by someone that's,
yeah.
kind of not a chancer and doing a really good job on it. Yeah, Charles
It's a
Bradley.
good way. That's a good way of putting it. It's describing his daughter as a chancer. Although it wasn't his fucking daughter, was it? It was Sharon again, pushing like it was that damn TV show, and then she did that thing. What was that performance she did of Papa Don't Preach? And it's like she was being forced upon us about like someone's got to keep the gravy train running.
Yeah, I think she was dipping her toes in the water of a pop career, and I guess when you got famous, famous connections, bit of nepotism and all that business. But yeah,
Yeah, it's unavoidable, isn't it? But there you go.
anyone that's seen there's and Voice, you might know this. There's a cartoon series called Big Mouth, which is a really cool cartoon. I think it's on Netflix, but the theme tune is Charles Bradley's version of Changes. Um, and I've always thought it's a great song, but that version of it just dials up the um puts a bit of grit and a bit of
The tingle.
yeah, something extra in it. This guy, I just, I'm going off piece now, but Charles Bradley was a James Brown impersonator.
Fucking
Right,
hell.
that was his career up to this point, and then like kind of someone plucked him out and said, and he's an old guy by this point. It's like, okay, right, let's try you out on this material. He'd heard the song, he wanted to give it a crack, he did it, and his version is just a heartbreaker. It really is.
Yeah, I'm going to go and listen to it again. I've definitely heard it, but now the way you're talking about it, it's like, yeah, I need to go back and listen to that again. So, right before that, then, so we're in top two. Um, I mean, it was probably always going to come down to these two, really, but there is a bit of a gap. So, actually, in second place, we've got Paranoid, and we've actually got that level on points with Volume 4. So, technically, joint second place. So, Paranoid, obviously, this elephant in the room. Obviously, you've got the title track, Sabbath's most famous song, that one there. But it would be easy for this album to get harmed by the fact it's got Sabbath's most famous song, like a Smoke on the Water or an Enter Sandman, whatever. But when you take Paranoid as a sum of its parts, I mean, fucking War Pigs, fucking Iron Man, fucking, it's just it's ridiculous. And the fact that Paranoid was the afterthought says
Fairies
it all.
wear boots.
Fairies wear boots.
Yes, they do.
And do
Yeah,
it's
they
just
do.
it's just ridiculous, utterly
I've, I've
ridiculous.
I've I've gone on a massive arc with the song Paranoid. It was actually right. So last week I talked about the first Sabbath I ever heard was from Dehumanizer. I can't
Yeah,
remember the track. I can't remember the track, but it was a given away with the magazine. That was the first time I heard Sabbath. But they didn't really enter into my consciousness. Then I kind of thought, oh, there's this band Black Sabbath, and I sought out the song Paranoid because, that was their song. And I remember feeling really disappointed, like really kind of like, this is like the heaviest band known to man, right? As in, that's how it had been sold to me. And then this quite sort of lightweight, poppy, sort of punkish, poppy track comes in. And I remember thinking, oh, okay. And putting it down for a while, like I didn't go back. And then I was in a record shop, Beano's in Croydon, RIP.
Shout out.
Yeah, great little store. This was when for a while it changed locations many times over the years, but for a while, it was down on in the market, and it was just a little shop, and I was browsing the cassettes at that time because that's all I bought all my albums on cassette, and over the sound system, they played Iron Man, and it sounded like the heaviest thing I'd ever heard in my life. I mean, it just floored me. So I was like, right, I need to buy that album and get away. But it's a secondhand record shop, so they didn't have it in stock. So I'm looking for it. I walked away with Ozzy's debut, right? So that's another conversation. We'll get into that. But it set me on the path of Paranoid. Okay, I've got to track this album down. It's got Iron Man, the heaviest song in the world on it. Through that, eventually got a copy and fell head over heels. I love Paranoid. Love, love, love Paranoid. Love the title track. Went through a period of just going off it because, if they're going to play Black Sabbath on the radio, it's always Paranoid. It's the ubiquitous track that, it
Yeah.
just like Ace of Spades for Motorhead, etc., etc., etc. So I kind of went off it for that reason. In the last 2 years, I really got back on board with it as a track. And again, it's another one that just energizes me. When it comes on, I'm just like, fucking Paranoid, mate. Yeah, have it. So
But you
I
can't like Paranoid because it's their most popular song. It's what all the all the normies like. It's no, you
Paranoid,
can't like Paranoid.
it gets me pumped.
Yeah, but
Right?
it's got one of Iommi's best solos. The reason I say that is because not because of it's technically better than some of his other guitar solos. It's compact. It serves the song.
The
So
whole thing is
there are
just
some songs in Sabbath. Yeah, but there are some songs on these albums where some of the guitar solos, or just when he's playing on his own, can go off in too many different tangents. So this is quite compact. Um,
yeah, I mean, for better or worse, Iommi would do that sometimes. And we're going to talk about the debut. There's a lot of guitar on the debut.
Are we?
We have to, surely. Um, unless there's a power cut. But no, you're right. I think Paranoid is the sound of a band just hitting it. It's like, okay, we've got we've got an hour left in the studio, whatever it was, go. And off they went. But do you know what? That's just scraping the surface because you've got motherfucking war pigs in front of that.
Well, look, we need to hand this over to the voice of
Probably
reason
like
because
the metal War Pigs is the metal protest song, I think.
yeah, properly.
Mm,
Yeah, properly.
Yeah.
There's a reason that Sacred Reich covered it when they did. It was in with their whole stick at the time, and
right.
it worked. So yeah, you're right. It is the ultimate heavy metal protest song. But yeah, going back to we need to hand this over to Old Man Reason because this is your number one. So the rest of us have got it sort of just about up there, but this is your number one. So let's hear why.
I mean, it's pretty much a best of in itself, isn't it?
It's fair.
Basically, you say, best of Black Sabbath. Well, there you go. It's Paranoid. It's, I mean, side A. Come on, War Pigs, Paranoid, Planet Caravan, Iron Man.
Has
Yeah,
anyone heard?
it's
Has
average.
anyone heard Henry Rollins do a skit on Iron Man? Like he just frames it perfectly. It's like because I think a bit like Paranoid. It's one of those songs that's quite easy to take for granted. Like we've all heard it. Yeah, da 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 da. Has he lost his mind? All that stuff. Um, and then he just kind of goes, "Hang on, slow down. Just read the lyrics." And he talks about this kind of iron beast who's shunned by society. Nobody loves him. He's just pushed to one side. And he's like, do you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to have my vengeance, and he just destroys the haters, as my kids would have said, a few years ago. Um, and when you listen to Rollins talk about this song, he puts it in, he kind of frames it in a way that you think, fucking hell, man, yeah, that's heavy. That is heavy. Like, who can't relate? What metalhead can't relate to, feeling like an outsider, feeling shunned by society? Particularly like our younger selves. When we're kind of finding our way in all this stuff. And then just that fantasy of going, yeah, well, fuck you, and just laying waste to everything. Okay, like it's a powerful song. It also was almost called Iron Bloke.
What the fuck?
There's a great little skit. Get on the YouTube and look at, like, I don't know, Google Geezer Butler Iron Bloke, and he talks about, so Iommi's written this riff, right? And they're all sort of charged up and they're discussing it, and Ozzy's saying to Geezer, "Yeah, do you know what? It sounds like a big Iron Bloke." So for a while, that track was genuinely called Iron Bloke.
Fuck's sake. That, yeah, wouldn't surprise me at all. But
Could have been very different.
anything more to say on Paranoid?
Um, no, I mean,
Well, it's got a track called Rat Salad on it, which is great.
I think Electric Funeral needs a shout out just for being. I mean, this is, I think, when Sabbath really hit their stride with Doom, like in the sense that I think the first album was probably an experiment, like a happy accident. Whereas um I think they took arguably maybe more of a deliberate approach on Paranoid and really fucking wrote the template for modern Doom with a song like Electric Funeral.
Sickeningly good. Sickeningly good. Well, it just leaves us to debut then, doesn't it? At number one.
Yeah, load
Just
of old shit.
just merely just the album that kind of
Joking,
started it all. I mean, what can you say?
Well, what can you say?
That's not why I mean it's my number one because there's that one afternoon where you my dad wasn't like a hard rock connoisseur or anything, but he did have a few albums. I just remember there was one afternoon. There's three albums in the mix: Led Zeppelin 3, Deep Purple Made in Japan, Black Sabbath. Those three.
Another cliffhanger from Padre.
Cliffhanger again.
Another cliffhanger. I can link the title track of this song back to that story where I walked away with Ozzy's Blizzard of Oz, because I actually had two things in my shopping bag that day, and the other was a VHS copy of Ozzy's Live and Loud, which to this day I think is a great live recording, great live album. But the encore, they got Bill, Geezer, and Tony came on to play the encore. So I'm watching this video and they start with Black Sabbath, and I felt it, like, and that, which might sound weird or whatever, but it chilled me to the bone. And I had no idea at that point that music could have that effect on me. I had no idea that music could scare me in the same way that, a horror film would, or I don't know, I just felt chilled to the bone. The atmosphere that comes off that one track is incredible.
Mm.
And I think, that album as a whole sustains that atmosphere. I think that for me is why it's such a brilliant piece of work. I don't think, I mean, it has great songs on it. Obviously, you've got the title track, you've got NIB, which is an absolute banger. You got Behind the Wall of Sleep, where Bill Ward invents hip hop. Check that out. And then you flip it over and you've got, like, side two just sounds like, and this is going back to what we were talking about their most occult album. To me, it's like some kind of not that the style is the same, but it's like some kind of voodoo ritual going on the other side where the band just ebbs and flows and jams, and it sounds like you're lost like underground in Chislehurst caves, and there's this distant music and that figure of the woman from the front covers like following you, and there's so much atmosphere baked into that album. It is the definitive Black Sabbath. I just I can't give it enough accolades. I think it's a wonderful piece of work and it stands out there on its own.
Yeah, it's like the song "The Wizard" is just some of the best lyrics. It's like misty morning, cloud in the sky. Without warning, a wizard walks by. I mean, it just doesn't get any better than
That's a mic drop right there.
that.
It's, but it's interesting because I mean, The Wizard, what a track. Harmonica intro with Ozzy. Despite those lyrics, even like, is it the end, my friend? Satan's coming round the bend. Like, it's shit, isn't it, really? But it works. It works because there's so much
No, no, no,
atmosphere
no.
that's
The
up in there.
lyrics from The Wizard are fucking superlative, right? I mean, it's a song about a fucking wizard walking around. What more do you want? Like, you know, just never talking, just keeps walking, spreading his magic. Just it does. It's great. You know, um,
What more do you
it
need?
just and it's like one of those things where you could just say to someone, "Misty morning, clouds in the sky," and then they'll just look at you and they'll be like, "Without warning, a wizard walks by."
Just
It's
imagine that
what
scenario,
more do you
like
want?
without warning, a wizard walks by. I know, like we're recording this and it's Glastonbury weekend, so a lot of people are probably seeing this, as it happens. But
No, they're not. They're just seeing a procession of Range Rovers and Mini Coopers with Tarquin and Jemima behind them.
well, that's true. Times have changed, haven't they? But I love that. Without warning, a wizard walks by.
It's very poetic.
Yeah, I mean,
Very poetic.
I've been trying to think of like, and it's not Harry Potter. Okay, it's not that type of wizard, right? It's definitely Tolkien-esque. That's the
Yeah,
kind of
this
wizard
this is this is
leveling.
Gandalf on mushroom shit. This is,
I mean, it is, isn't it?
you know.
Well, if Gandalf on mushrooms is Radagast the Brown, I mean Gandalf's a fucking stoner,
You used to call
right?
yourself
But
Radagast Brown.
yeah,
Interestingly,
yeah, I did actually.
yeah, you did. Interesting though, because the three of us just waffling on aimlessly about this all had it at number one. But Old Man Reason at number five, which is quite surprised at.
Are you though?
Well, I mean, you're going to fill me in, so we'll find out.
Well,
But
you'd like that, wouldn't you?
Ooh,
anything really, I
No,
don't
I
mind.
think it just comes down to preference. This is unsurprisingly their most bluesy album, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and that is in all honesty, is less my thing than riffs, obvious riffs. So it just falls a bit further down because it doesn't hook me in like other stuff that they do.
Mm. That
Um,
actually makes a lot of sense.
Mm.
yeah, that's it really. It's yeah, I get more pleasure with other albums than I do this, but it's still the first proper heavy metal album, and it's always going to be up there.
And you can
Mm.
never take that away either.
No,
For all the anything that all sorts of bands have achieved over the years, you can never take away the fact that Black Sabbath debut started it all.
it's yeah,
You know,
it really did, and also you can hear that baked into it as well. It is the sound of a young band.
Mm.
Ozzy sounds fantastic on this album, and I think that's perhaps something that's underappreciated about it is. So here's like years ago, probably about 7 years ago, I went to one of those pitch black playback nights where you kind of sit in a dark room and you put a blindfold on and they just play an album. It's the only one I've ever been to, but it was Black Sabbath's debut. And I was there with my girlfriend, who's not a Black Sabbath fan, who kind of had no real relationship or connection with them at all, but kind of came along because it's a date, isn't it? Um, that's the sort of date I'd take people on. Yeah, we're going to sit in the dark and listen to Black Sabbath. Um, but I have to say, what a fucking experience to listen to this album and to really actively listen to it, right? And you hear all the nuances and all the, you know, all its kind of the primitive nature of it, but also how powerful it is. And Ozzy singing before he kind of, felt the need to be Ozzy. I think what we get now is what we get now is a very enhanced version of Ozzy, but he eventually, I think, became this very affected, the Ozzy Osbourne voice.
Just a little bit.
But these early albums, he's just singing. It's just a man who loved music and wanted to be a part of it all and just sung. And his voice is fantastic. And that's, a track like the title track just stands up on that haunting, mournful quality of his voice.
Yeah.
It's undeniable.
So what I want to know is, it's like, you're on this date and you're gazing into each other's eyes, and then like you look up
Well,
and
they're
a
not. It's
fucking
darkness.
wizard walks.
Fuck's sake.
Look, we had blindfolds on, so there could have been wizards, mate, all over the place.
Kinky.
But anyway,
right.
I was gonna. So just to
This is
add into that, it's important to say actually, she
someone
walked
takes their
away.
blindfold
She
off.
walked away from that
Some,
loving it. She was just like, "That's incredible." So I forgot that was
yeah,
the tail end of that story was, she walked away a fan.
but did you say to her, like, after the date, like, and you were like, well, can I call you again? And she was like, I'm not sure. And you just went, evil woman, don't you play your games with me?
Right, look, we got to the end of that. We kind of need to do something. We said last week we would attempt this. We need a top three, right? Out of all of Sabbath's back catalogue, we need a top three. Now I'm gonna throw the first punt there. We did look at a sort of a scoring for this, but I'm gonna throw a first punt. That top three should probably be Black Sabbath, Paranoid, and Heaven and Hell, on pure sort of everything those albums stand for various different reasons. I think that should be their top three. Um, I'll put it out to you three to sort of, your input on it. What do you think? Am I there? Am I not?
I
I
agree.
mean, yeah, I mean, on a personal level, I think my top three would be Paranoid, Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath, and then Heaven and Hell. So, considering your rank, everyone else's rankings, that would be
Well,
fair.
Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath is going to be up there. Yourself and me both got it at number two.
Yeah, I think I'd still go with exactly your three, Tregenza. I think I put it this way: if someone was to say like, what is Black Sabbath? I think those three will give you everything you need. I think between the debut and Paranoid, you generally get a flavor, more than the flavor of kind of the what Black Sabbath do, how they started, with Ozzy. But you need Heaven and Hell in there because, as we know, as we talked about, they went off,
Mhm.
and they did something that was really unique for them.
And it shouldn't have worked. Like you don't lose a singer like Ozzy Osbourne, and you've already done those first 8 albums. You don't lose a singer that iconic. Get
Yeah,
someone else in and do Heaven and Hell. It shouldn't work. Like Back
it's
in Black, same thing. It just shouldn't be allowed. But they just smashed it out of the park.
what can I say?
You know, Padre,
Kudos.
can you not hear us?
Padre, what's your top three?
Um, I would go with what Tregenza said. So debut, Paranoid, Heaven and Hell, for basically the same reasons. I might quibble over maybe having just Paranoid. No, sorry, debut, Paranoid, and then Volume 4. I think there might be a case there, but
I think that
because like
reminds me of it.
going back through this, like I've listened to Volume 4 again and again and again and again, and it's really grown on me because I hadn't listened to it in quite a while. And I've got nothing against the Dio thing. In fact, I think just out of fairness to Dio and those guys putting that in at 3, but it's just such a difficult choice.
I was an Aussie
This is
purist
just
for years. It took me a long
Many
time
of us were, yeah.
to kind of discover, everything that came after. Bearing in mind, most of it existed. Like when I mean, Dehumanizer had just come out when I was kind of discovering metal. So the majority of all of this stuff already existed, and I was not going anywhere near Tony Martin. I was not going anywhere near Dio. It was all Aussie. And it reminds me of a story. I once had a very drunken conversation in a pub with Lee Dorian, um, who was maintaining that Black Sabbath ended when Ozzy left. Right? Okay, that was it. Game over. And there's me kind of saying, no, like all Sabbath matters, man. You got to listen to the Tony Martin. And I just laugh. There's me trying to school Lee Dorian on what constitutes metal, right? Okay. And I can only say I was very drunk at the time.
I was very, very drunk. I think the one album we all agree on there, really, well, it's actually two, is Paranoid and Heaven and Hell. We probably have to put Paranoid up there as the number one because it just seems to be the one that everybody is in there with and the reasons for it. Like Voice of Reason said, it is like a Black Sabbath best of.
Yeah.
So I think
I mean, look,
you can't
I'm
argue
wearing
with
the
that.
t-shirt. There you go.
I mean,
That's
they let themselves down on the cover though. They could have come up with a better album cover.
well, they did.
Well, they did that T-shirt.
Look, there is a version of it. This was like the artwork on the 7-inch single of Paranoid, and to my eyes, it works. But
No, I want to see pigs fighting for the album cover. That's like
this is
like
the
I,
story though. That image is supposed to be a war pig, right? So that was the original concept for everything. So that guy jumping out the bushes with what's he got, like a pink motorcycle helmet on or something? I don't know. Was some artist's interpretation of war pigs.
I mean,
what they needed, like
I mean,
I
it
mean,
kind of makes technical
like
ecstasy make sense, doesn't it?
caricatures like of like because it was Paranoid's 1970, so Nixon, Kissinger, those guys, because obviously Vietnam's cranking up in 1970, so um, that would have been quite cool.
well, I think we come to the end of this. I mean, it's a marathon sprint. When this episode goes out, the Back to the Beginning event will be happening, and it is actually the end of it.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's all kind of led towards Ozzy, obviously, because we know Ozzy ain't gonna last much longer. The other three look relatively healthy still, but just and for whatever we think about the event, about the ticket prices, about Sharon Osbourne, about all of that, what that event needs to be is just a massive fucking celebration of Black Sabbath and nothing else. You've got
Damn
to
right.
take away all the nonsense, all the bullshit, and it's just got to be a pure fucking celebration. I
Yeah.
really hope it goes off like it should.
I
You
tell you
know,
what my hope is, I'm sure it's going to happen, is like all of these albums we've talked about, right? Because there's a fucking huge lineup of musicians, right? So I'm thinking a lot of these deep cuts, right? Songs that we haven't heard for a long time. I'm sure bands have got, they're going to be throwing in suggestions. I'd really like to cover this. I want to do that. So you've got different musicians, different skill sets, different voices that are going to be suited to different eras of these
yeah.
eight albums we've been talking about. So I want to hear A Hard Road, I want to hear Never Say Die. I want to hear some of these tracks that the band themselves haven't pulled out the vaults for years. They're not going to play them themselves, but you've got all these guys that want to pay, and guys and girls that want to pay tribute. I just love to hear some of these tracks that have been sitting in the vaults for such a long time.
I think it will happen because you think there's so many bands playing it, they can't all do War Pigs. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I think you are going to get some deep cuts. Like I'm traveling that day. I mean, I probably wouldn't have paid the 25 quid to watch it because I'm tight. But I mean,
But listen, get yourselves down to, if you can't get there, Helgies,
Helgies.
Sorry,
Blondies, right? The- you
25
know,
quid
the,
to watch it. What?
There's a live stream, yeah. But
Sorry.
like Bean saying, there are places you can go and watch
get
it
down
for
to your
free.
metal
So
bar, because they'll be showing it, and pay your respects and raise a glass and just, toast, as far as I'm concerned, the greatest heavy metal band that ever was. I've always said it.
Why this this for me, this is what gets on my fucking nose, right? So, BBC are going to be all over Glastonbury Thursday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's going to be like shoved down everyone's
Mhm.
throats. It's going to be fucking on the 6 o'clock news, and it's okay. Fair enough. It's become a national cultural event. But what about this? This is one of the fucking pivotal British bands from a working class background who are hanging up the boots. You can't do it for the Beatles because John's dead and so is George Harrison. And I would have no problem if it was done for the Beatles either. Fucking BBC One should be covering this. This
I
is
agree.
why you have a license fee. It's public service broadcasting.
I agree.
Mm.
I agree. It should not be a paid for live stream.
Yeah.
But like I
And
said,
it's discriminatory. I'm sorry, it is fucking discriminatory.
but look,
Again, oh, it's heavy metal.
yeah, but I mean, it might not be that. We can argue about that a lot, but what's more important is the event and the people that are there. The live stream doesn't
Yeah,
really mean
yeah.
anything because so much of it's going to end up on YouTube anyway.
It's going to be on YouTube. It'll
You
be
know,
available. Yeah.
so
Well, yeah.
yeah, I mean, obviously you don't get all the nicely recorded versions from the sound desk and all that bollocks, but it's all going to get out there. We're all going to see what happened, and all that matters. Look, it's where it fucking began. The fact they're doing it at Villa Park just rules. I just think it's just brilliant. That's it. We don't need to say any more. They just need to go out, celebrate it, and just disappear off into the ether. That's it.
That's it. And what I was going to say is I've always described Black Sabbath for me as the beginning, the middle, and the end. I mean, they just the most important band that I've ever listened to, I've ever spent time with, man. What can I say? I can't be at the event, but it means a lot.
Yep. And on that note, cheers. Stay metal.